You only get one shot. Are they going to click on that and look more at the listing, or are they going to move on?
Real Estate Radio Boston with loan officer Rick Shearer of Guaranteed Rate.
If you are dealing with someone that doesn't understand those micro markets, you're going to be steered completely in the wrong direction.
And legal professional Ali Alavi of Alavi Braza PC.
It's a transaction for us, but it's someone's home.
The biggest anxiety I felt, am I going to get the mortgage?
It all breaks down to communication.
Real Estate Radio Boston gives you the information you need to succeed in today's housing market.
Just agree on something?
Yeah, we actually did. Isn't that amazing?
I love that.
You're giving me this blank stare.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this. But
you left his lawyer up.
He's handsome too.
Rick Shearer, NMLS ID 454910. This is Real Estate Radio Boston.
People call closing costs what they have to write the check for at closing. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's so that word is used interchangeably, and it shouldn't be. What I call that is your cost to close. That's your cost to close on the transaction.
Can we break that down for a minute?
Let's break it down, my friend.
If we talk about closing costs, let's separate closing costs with cost to close.
Yeah.
When a consumer hears the word closing costs, what are we talking about exactly?
Yeah, so I put it down into 3 buckets. This is how I explain it to clients. We actually put a book together that actually spells this out and put 3 different buckets. So first of all, you've got your closing costs. That's your legitimate closing costs. That is any fee associated with closing on your loan. Mm-hmm. That is things like your appraisal. That's things like your recording fee. That's things like you're paying your attorney. Paying the title insurance that's either required or optional on the loan. Those are all the fees that are absolutely required to pay in order to close on the loan. Mm-hmm. That's one set of fees. Okay. And yeah, that could be, $2,000, $2,200, $2,400. And again, because the title insurance on the loan, typically all of the fees are fixed except for your title insurance because it's based on your purchase price and the loan amount that you decide to take out. Okay.
Right.
So that's your variables. That's your closing costs. That's it. Okay. However, there's 2 other buckets that are going to be required at closing.
Now, before we get to the other 2 buckets, I mean, the closing costs as you've defined them. I'm really happy that you say that the title insurance is tied into the loan amount and the purchase price, obviously. But I think the expectation in the mind of the consumer should be that you should expect to pay anywhere between 2 to 5% as far as your closing costs.
I think in Massachusetts, if we're talking Massachusetts,
we're talking Mass.
Yeah, we're closer to 2%.
Okay.
Yeah, 2.5%.
Right, exactly. And then now the 2 other buckets.
The 2 other buckets are your escrows. So you have the ability, if you put 20% down or more, you have the ability to either escrow your taxes and insurance or not escrow your taxes and insurance. People that put down less than 20% are typically required to do so. We're running out of time, but the third thing is the incidentals. If you're buying a home and the seller has paid taxes ahead while you're going to be in the property, you got to reimburse them for that. Oil in the oil tank, it could be $800 or $900. You got to pay for that. So those are all things that we don't necessarily know what's happening at the time you're assigning your offer. Mm-hmm. But once everything shakes out, it's due at closing. So there's closing costs, there's your escrows, and then there's your incidentals. They all encumber your cost to close, not closing costs.
Exactly. And I think the bottom line is have a candid, open conversation with your mortgage professional or your attorney about what should I expect to be paying for my closing costs and the cost to close. And we will we'll go through it with you in great level of detail so there is no sticker shock.
Because lenders will just give you the closing costs in order to look more competitive. However, you need the cost to close, and that's the important part. The incidentals, we're not going to know, but we'll know escrows and we'll know your closing costs. Exactly. Adjustable rate mortgage is a mortgage that's amortized over 30 years. Okay, so it's the same thing. It's the length of the time is 30 years. However, there's an adjustment period built into this type of loan. So you can have a 3-year, a 5-year, a 7-year, a 10-year adjustable rate mortgage. And the number in front of that really just means how long is that rate locked in for. Mm-hmm. 7-year adjustable rate mortgage, it's a 30-year term mortgage. The rate's locked in for 7 years and can adjust every year after that based on a margin and an index.
But what are some of the 3 key elements in a adjustable rate mortgage that a consumer should look at?
Yeah.
And what are some of the key things that they should be aware of?
Absolutely. So the first thing is you've got to look at the term associated that's going to be locked in for. Okay. So again, we talked about it 5, 7, 10 years. The second thing is you want to look at the margin.
Okay. And what is that?
And the margin is essentially either 2.25 or 2.75%. Okay, so it's just the seal. This is the bottom. Like in other words, when that rate goes to adjust, you start at the 2.25 or 2.75, and then you look at the index. Okay, and the index is usually a treasury or a LIBOR. And so when 7 years comes up, what you're going to do a couple months beforehand, you're going to get a letter in the mail, and it's going to say your margin is 2.25, and the index for the LIBOR this month is 3%. So you add the 3, the 4, the 5, so 2 and a quarter. So let's say it's 2 and a quarter, and you add 3, so you're at 5.25% is what that rate is going to adjust after that 7 years.
Right.
Okay. So that's how you.
Of the two elements of the margin and the index, the most important one is your margin, because remember what Rick just said, that creates the floor.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with your adjustment 5 years down the road or 7 years or 10 years down the road, you start with that margin, which is your floor, and you add whatever the index
What
is.
I'll tell you. What are you finding difficult right now in order to put homes on the market? Or are they just flying off the shelves?
They're flying off the shelves.
There.
Now, that's truthfully,
Right, because of the inventory piece of it. But are you
Yes.
also dealing with the sellers thinking, well, maybe that house is worth another $100,000 more?
So I have to. The footnote to that is it has to be priced right.
Okay.
If you price it too high and you risk that, well, there are lots of buyers out there. There's no inventory. I always tell my sellers a house will sell for what it's going to sell for. So you could price it really high and lose 30, 60, 90 days on the market, and you probably end up selling your house for less. Because if you start sitting through the spring market and through the summer,
Yeah.
you will get less for your
And
home.
reverse engineer this too. When you sit in front of the seller and you're telling them all this thing, be like, hey, you're going to start to look for other property. You see a house that's on the market for 90 and 120 days in this marketplace. What are you thinking to yourself?
Exactly.
You're thinking there's something wrong.
What's wrong with
What's
it?
wrong
Yeah.
with it?
Exactly.
You know, and so you don't want that stigma on your own property, because that,
Right.
you'll lose in a big way.
That's
Do you
right.
recommend maybe putting it on just a little bit under where the market value is, or are you looking at right where the comps say?
I look right where the comps say, and I don't just look at the solds, but I look at what's on the market right now, because you put your house on the market, it's now a commodity. Buyers are out there, they're very wise, they're online. I think
Yeah.
you mentioned that earlier. They're on Zillow and all these sites and on their phones, and they know, they've been to every open house. They know what a good value is.
Yeah.
So you have to price it just right. In fact, I was just doing this last night. I was working on with my brother-in-law's home I'm putting on the market today. And
Where is it?
It's actually, it's not on, it's Hyde Park.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
It's in Reedville. Isn't that funny?
How many square feet?
It's 1630.
And can you tell us the price?
It's coming on at $439,900.
$439,900. So if you're looking at Hyde Park and you're looking for that kind of square footage, give us a call at 8554-ASK Rick. We'll make a personal introduction to Katrina, so you can get in there and take a look at it.
But talking about price, we have to be in a certain, because what you want is a lot of buyers coming in and saying, wow, this is a great value. And there you get the multiple offers, and you end
Right.
up selling. If you go a little too high, they never say it's the price, but they find other things.
You have about 2.1 months of inventory in Marblehead now, and you haven't seen this type of restrictive inventory for over a decade. And what do you attribute this really low inventory to?
Well, I think what we're in is a changing economy. We have millennials coming in who normally would be our buyer pool. But millennials are looking for different types of properties than what you find in the suburbs. They're sticking to urban properties, smaller properties. They want to be more mobile, more flexible. They want to be close to work, reduce their carbon footprint. They're not looking for the same kind of things that buyers before had always been ready to come into the suburbs. It was always a very natural progression. But we're not seeing that influx of the younger buyers desiring to come in. So consequently, we don't have that nice balance that we've
Sure.
always enjoyed before.
Interesting. What's the hesitation on the part of the current residents living in Marblehead wanting to downsize and leave, and therefore adding additional inventory to the market?
There's a lack of senior housing or senior residential communities for boomers. And the boomers are the sellers today. And their big hesitation is, where am I going to go?
Right.
And there's so few places that are perfect for them. And so that it becomes a problem, because then they hesitate and drag their feet on putting their house on the market. So it's another crunch for lack of inventory.
What are some of the questions that you are faced with when you're dealing with listing? I mean, trying to persuade people to list.
Well, we can offer some hope on the horizon, because although real estate is is a big cycle, you know, and what goes up will come down and what goes down will come up. So if you're hesitating, but you do definitely want to sell, you know that your goal is to sell, but you're just not sure about where to go, one option is to consider short-term rental until you do find the right place for you. It allows you to capture the market right now that's hot, get the good price. We have nice, robust selling prices. Get that in your pocket, put it in your bank
account, sit
and
on the
let
sidelines.
it work for you.
Yeah.
And then now you're ready, because now you can look the landscape over, find the right house at the right time, but still be comfortable in a rental that's nearby.